Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Splat Chat on Beep. This is the most meta episode I think we've ever had because we're doing all of the podcast hosts from the Splatoon scene on a podcast about podcasts. So I'm Hammy, and I'm joined with Popgun and Glitch Cactus. So I guess we'll kind of go down the line, introduce ourselves, and talk about the podcast that we host. So I'll start with myself. I'm Hammy, or Hammy in the Wall. I'm the host of Critical Inking, which is a little podcast I made with the intention of kind of promoting critical thinking and discussion and just positive reinforcement and working together with each other on topics rather than a lot of the negative approach that we take to a lot of the topics in the community. And I guess Popgun, you can go next.
I'm the guy who talks about negative stuff in the community because somebody has to be the counterweight to Hammy. If you don't know who I am, but you're watching Beep, how is that possible? Yeah, it's a very egotistical thing for me to say. But I started my podcast back during the pandemic because I had nothing else to do. And it is an attempt to recreate sports talk radio for competitive Splatoon. And I've found ways to just have fun with it and enjoy it. And I'm happy that there are people who like listening and enjoying it as well. The two people that are on here, and by the way, our producer as well for this episode of the Splat Chat, has all been guests, if not flat out hosts of my podcast in the past as well. So this is a rare opportunity for me to have the shoe on the other foot, and it is quite a comfortable shoe, I got to say. I like it here. Cactus, what are you doing?
Well, I'm enjoying this conversation, as I'm sure you all are. Yeah, my name's Cactus. That's what I mostly go by. I have had the occasional "Are you glitched?" Conversation at LANs or in some fun stream moments. But yeah, I host the Cactus Patch, I guess the third horseman of the podcast trio right now in the Splatoon scene, prioritizing conversations about really whatever's kind of popular at the moment. Of course, recently this year, I'm trying to delve a little bit into a different direction by having community spotlights, having some members that maybe do a lot in the scene, but their recognition kind of goes under the radar. But I love just kind of having any and every conversation possible of whatever might be in tune at that moment during whatever period of the scene we're in, whether it be a 80th conversation about how there's too many tournaments, or to something brand new that no one really has decided to talk about yet.
Awesome. Yeah, it is. It is nice to see that because we barely have any podcasts in our scene. Like, I'm surprised that it's just this. Like, the fact that, again, I have 4 episodes of the podcast, and there was like a 6-month break in between the most recent episode and the one before it. But everyone's like, "Yeah, you're one of the podcast guys." I'm like, I don't feel like I've really been a podcaster. It's just a thing I did on the side. So I'm surprised there isn't more podcasts about Splatoon because there is these 4. There's Beep, which we are here now, and then there's the 3 of us who host all of our respective shows. And all of them cover very different things, as we just kind of talked about, what each of ours cover. And I feel like there's even more stuff that can be covered by people that just isn't really done. But yeah, I just wanted to open the table up to like discussions on podcasts in general, like about Splatoon, even about non-Splatoon if you want to. I don't care.
Well,
just why we think they're important and just,
I don't. If they are important, it's from a narrative of storytelling. One of the main reasons I started the podcast was to tell stories about low level because nobody was talking about it at the time. And now, arguably, we're at a point to where it's like low level's too popular to talk about and that nobody wants to talk about you after you win low ink, which is true because I don't care if you win low ink. But, it's when you talk about competitive Splatoon, we're such a niche community, and there have been people who've done other podcasts before. Gus used to do a podcast on YouTube just interviewing players and commentators and TOs. And there's been other people that have done stuff like that before. This team called 60% Fish Puns I forget the name, but the captain of that team used to have a podcast similar to that style as well. I think the thing is that it's hard to stay fresh when you do something like this. Like there's a lot of times where, and I've gotten away from doing this too, which is just like creating something to talk about. And now I'm just at a point where like, okay, there's nothing to talk about, so I'm not going to just force an episode to happen. But it's easy to make content when there's a lot of things going on, which we were kind of spoiled with at the end of last year. But other than that, there's not really a lot of things to talk about other than when the community gets riled up because Splat Safety sneezed or somebody said something crazy on social media. Well, let's do an hour-long segment talking about that. So there's not usually a lot of consistent things to go with unless you're just really dedicated to creating things to talk about. And there could be Splatoon podcasts like outside of the competitive scene. I have no idea. And if there were, I wouldn't listen to them because I wouldn't be interested. And whoever listens to stuff like this is really, really interested in competitive Splatoon, which, you know, if you are, so be it, which is awesome. But I don't know. I don't think there's a strong market for a lot of I'm not trying to like discourage anybody from doing it. Obviously, I've been pro anybody just turning on your microphone and talking, and if somebody listens, cool. But, you know, I don't think as far as like, wow, there's not a lot of people that do it. And it's like, well, I don't think there's a lot of interest in people wanting to do it, which is fine.
Yeah, and when I said that, it wasn't even from a standpoint of like, oh, there's a market for this, there should be more people, but it's podcasting isn't really that difficult. And I think
No.
you know, like there yeah, exactly. And there have
Well,
been
Definitely not.
Or do you say what you're gonna say, Pop Gun?
It's not hard to just like turn on your camera and talk. It's hard to be entertaining.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's hard to get the ums out of there. It's hard to stay on topic. It's, you know, with like the show I do, I try to just like emulate what I hear on the radio. And I'm always just surprised with like, how do these people just talk for 3 hours by themselves and end up being entertaining? And that's something, I don't know if I'm there yet or not, but that's something that I like, a skill that I'm like personally just trying to develop. And it takes a lot of time. And it's also just like, can you be comfortable being yourself? And a lot of people, a lot of commentators too, are not at that point yet either. So it's not difficult to get started up. It's difficult to be good and get people to like buy in, like a significant enough people to buy into where it's like, okay, cool, I can actually engage with chat, or I feel like my voice is being heard, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen like a handful of, like Popcorn said before, we've seen a handful of people have different types of forms of podcasts, or even just like as talk shows, if you even also want to call them that as well. I know one I remember seeing a lot of like advertisement on Blue Sky is Knox, the commentator, would have interviews with top level players and just kind of explore their mindsets when it comes to certain things about the game and just how they perform. And I think a reason we see a lot of people like kind of maybe step their toes a little bit into a podcast slash talk show type of content field, whether it be on a Twitch stream or a YouTube video or anything of the sort, is not really seeing, I guess, the quick return that, in a sense, social media nowadays has kind of pushed you to achieve. And once you, after putting a little bit of effort, you don't see it, it kind of gets shut down right away. I know that there were a couple of people that were comp players still in this that still compete, like tried it, they dabbled in it. But ultimately, it never went off the ground. It went maybe 2-3 episodes, and then it was like, well, what else is there to do? And I think that falls under the aspect of, you know, what's the topic do I even want to talk about? After we do that, like, what do I even bother to talk about next? And then, like Popkin said, the entertainment factor. You know, how do I be entertaining for so long? But I think it's really just not being afraid to have a really short or a really long episode. You know, everyone wants to shoot for consistency, and while that's great, especially in the beginning, it's not the most important field. As long as you're able to as long as you're enjoying it and getting something out there, you should have a good run on your hands.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something I was going to mention too, is that like there are a lot of things that don't have to be a podcast that are still in the same realm. Like I was going to bring up as well, Nox doing those interviews, Splat interviews, I believe it's called,
Hmm.
on their channel where it's been a couple months since they've done one. As well as, didn't Jardonian have something called the Weekly Ink, on IPL where it was like a
Well, that's
weekly review of
yeah.
the,
Then that's still a
Mhm.
thing. Actually, the last episode came out, I think, 2 days ago.
Yeah,
Um,
I
it's
think they've
been,
taken a break from it, but
but
came
then
back up.
that falls into the description of how do you define a podcast? Because at
Exactly.
the core, the podcast isn't really a pod. Like you can't watch the podcast on your iPod, which I think is where the term podcast even comes from. It's just more of like, what'd you say, talk show? And I think the
Yeah.
word podcast has just been kind of taken over by the word talk show. It's really, you're just streaming, you're talking, and somebody's listening. Hopefully, if not, like at least you are listening to yourself,
Yeah.
which is what's worthwhile. But yeah, so like the Weekly Ink, that went away for a little bit, but now that Jardodian's team has enough staff to kind of pull that off on a consistent basis, that's coming back. Um, do you guys remember Splatoon News underscore on
No.
Twitter? That might have been before your
Maybe.
time. But that was the thing. Okay, so there was the Splatoon news account, which was owned by like a crazy racist, like political person that would like randomly throw in crazy generics, like crazy stuff. And then there was the Splatoon news underscore, which would retweet scores of tournaments and would do like weekly highlights as well of like just taking a bunch of streams and like highlighting the key moments and doing stuff like that. That's gone away. Um, I'm trying to think of some other like now that we can broaden the term and not just the
Oh,
podcast.
remember
There's
the
a lot of
Splat
people.
magazine? Splat
Yes, yeah, that's
magazine was something that appeared for a bit. That was really cool.
yes.
Oh,
I think that
here's
was
Splatoon news.
by. Yes, this is okay. It says archive. Yeah, Mr. Rookie. And I met Mr. Rookie at a Riptide. Used to be, but if you could scroll down to eventually to where they were making content, or maybe just like the media of the content they were making, Splatoon News would regularly post like some highlights, some like actual videos they edited themselves to show what was going on in the event. So that's kind of an example I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Um,
And what I was gonna bring up too, is that because there was an earlier point, Popgun, you made about, there because of how niche competitive Splatoon is, and there isn't too much of a necessity in how, like you said, where's the value in forcing an episode to come out just to make an episode? And I agree with that because that's why there was a 6-month break between episodes of my show, because people kept asking me, like when I made the first episode or two, a lot of people watched it live and went, "Oh, this is great. When are you doing another episode?" And I said, "When I need to." The point of the show isn't, "Oh, this is my version of the podcast. This is my version of the Cactus Patch." Like, no, it was made with a purpose. Because whenever like any big drama or like, not, I don't even want to call it drama because I don't care about the drama. I care about when there seems to be an issue at hand. Like there's a topic that people are talking about, and it seems like the discussion isn't very productive. I wanted a space just to ramble because I could talk for hours about, some of these topics. So I was like, I just want a easy central place that I can just turn on my camera and just talk for an hour or two about this topic in like ways that as a community we could probably work on this more productively, and just to spark the discussion. Like I'm not here to solve problems. I'm not here to cancel people or like say who's right and who's wrong in situations. I just want to open the dialogue. And so that's kind of the purpose of it. It was a purpose that I wanted to specifically make episodes for. And also it's just like I just wanted to ramble. I don't care if anyone watches it. I'm not here to make stuff for people. I just wanted an outlet to talk. And so I think it would be interesting if more people kind of view making a podcast or something similar, just something, making content that the goal is just to be their outlet, whether they want to just ramble about how tournaments have been going, or like weekly recap stuff, or even just about things on Blue Sky, or just put out feelings and expressions and start these dialogues, start these conversations, and just like, be able to make interesting points that people can look at and take away from it.
Yeah, I think that also falls into the understanding of just how content's created, right? A lot of people don't start content because they think they have to have some kind of fancy editing software. They need to know how to create these cool edits or whatever it might be, or they're not really sure like if they stream like 3 hours of a tournament. They're not sure how to edit that VOD down. I think the simplest form of content you really could make is like just record yourself, like you said, speaking into a microphone, just saying what there is on your mind or whatever you might be seeing on your Blue Sky feed that day, or however you feel about something going on. And you can just upload that as a whole, and there's your content, right? You don't have to have a lot of these, fancy, editing mechanics behind it all. You can just simply put it together straight from your computer onto YouTube or wherever else you'd prefer to have it up, and you're set to go.
And if you're gonna do something to where your face is attached to it versus just like fitting something into the character limit of a post or a tweet or something like that, you're more likely to do a little bit more research yourself before you go on camera and put your like words on record. Because I think a lot of people shy away from doing longer form conversation stuff because I don't want to be wrong. And I don't want to like come across as like not knowing what I'm doing. And that doesn't stop a lot of people, especially commentators. I mean, if you just listen to any like Splatoon commentary, nobody knows what they're talking about. Otherwise, they would be playing in the grand final set they're commentating, which is fine. But I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I can't talk like that because I'm not informed enough. But you become formed during the conversation. And that, like Hammy said, that's part of the point, is just let's get your thoughts out there and then learn from the conversation. So just don't be afraid to add to it.
And that's, that's kind of the same with me. Is like, I'm a commentator and apparently a podcaster, according to the description of this episode. And I don't feel like I'm qualified for anything, but I like talking. I talk a lot. And whenever I talk, people seem to enjoy it. Like, I've had people compliment my commentary and enjoy episodes of my podcast. And, I can bring up interesting points. But when I stream, like, again, the point of critical inking is opening dialogue. I actively encourage people to use the chat, and specifically, like, don't even have to talk to me. Talk to each other in the Twitch chat separately from me. Just continue to talk and discuss the topic at hand, because I want to see as many ideas pop out, and just people asking questions is the main thing. And there have been times where when I'm streaming, I'm reading the chat and seeing people coming up with things that I've never thought of about these topics. Like, trains of thought and perspectives that I just can't have because everyone is different. And so, it's when you're making a podcast and when you're just making content in general, you're adding your own fresh perspectives to it. So even though if it may not be the highest quality or the best thing, it's going to be unique, and there's going to be value in that uniqueness, in the fact that's made, that there's someone who's going to enjoy that, someone who's going to find value. And, as you said too, you gain those skills, you become more informed and more versed in it over time. And it's a learning experience, but it is just kind of scary to turn your webcam on and be like, hey, here's my opinion, and then everyone might dog on you.
Well, let me kind of throw this out to the table. Has there been a time where you put out an episode of something and you felt like, oh, this actually had an impact, like this actually kind of created a buzz within the community? And I'll give you an example from me. I did an episode talking about how I had always been against banning weapons and like banning specials, like limited rule sets, stuff like that. And then I did an episode where I was like, okay, I'm changing my mind. I'm now for like certain limitations, like no, like you can't use double Zuka or double cooler, or like maybe even banning pencil or something like that. And I just saw, like, for the next couple of days, that became a topic of conversation to where like everybody was chiming in, either like I agree with this, or like I push back against this with my entire soul kind of thing. And to me, it was like, okay, cool. I initiated a conversation and it went somewhere. Have you guys had something similar to that?
I think for me, it had to be my episode with Volty about the state of top level. Longest podcast ever had to date. I think it was just shy of 3 hours. And there was no really clear insight in the going into it, but it was just letting someone who is in that top level position discuss on how they feel we can help them, right? How can we help form or better assist top level for not only the players but also the community in pushing for better tournaments and putting on just things for them to do, because you can't wait for the next Nintendo tournament to come around, especially when we don't know when those are going to be. You only have maybe two back then. This was like almost 2 years ago. One or two a year, or if you're lucky, every few months. Then you have the random, low level or mid level player that wants to put on a top level tournament, and then there's no traction behind it because they don't know really where to go. And that was probably the most informative podcast episode I ever had, and just seeing a lot of the big names that were popping in to just listen to the conversation, I feel like it helped just a bit push the trajectory forward of a lot of players just in the scene maybe watching, just were like, hey, like, what if I tried this and then literally do the simplest thing that Volty mentioned? And then next thing you know, we had a couple of like a little, smaller tournaments that were appearing for top level with, not the greatest prize pool ever, but enough to have like 6 to 8 really good teams competing. And we had content and we had stuff to watch and we had stuff to learn off of. So for me, I think to date, that's my favorite one I've ever had. And definitely I felt pushed a good meaning behind it.
And I guess for myself, so what's interesting is there's 3 episodes of Critical Linking, but there's actually like a secret 4th episode. Before I ever made the show, I made a one-off YouTube video called "Why Are You Still Playing Competitive Splatoon 3?" Where it's like a 15-minute long video where I literally ask that question. I say, "Why are you playing the game?" And I clickbaited it to be like, why are you playing it? Whatever. But it was a genuine question, because I think there's a lot of people in comp Splatoon who don't know why they're playing. It's just a thing they do. They haven't thought about what their goals are. What are you gaining from this? What are you giving to others while doing this? And after I put that video out, I had multiple people DM me and go, I had somebody tell me that I gave them an existential crisis because Splatoon is their main hobby and they realized they didn't know why it was. And somebody told me they cried. So but it was in a positive way, because they're like, those people reflected and went, yeah, what am I doing here? And they're still here. They're still active in the competitive scene, but they then started doing things more intentionally. They started, focusing on what matters, what doesn't, cutting out the things that are stressing them out and aren't gaining any value, and just being more intentional with the time that they're spending in this hobby. And that episode just kind of sparked the whole series in general. And I feel like every episode, even though all of them are like an hour to 2 long, there's really like a little like blip that's good. I'm still proud of the very first episode of Critical Linking, the analogy I opened up with. I'm pretty sure, Popgun, you stole that analogy at one point. It was the restaurants one where I went on like
I used the restaurant analogy, and people in my chat it might have been you and several others that were saying, "Oh, you got this from your show." And I didn't take it directly from there. I just came up with the idea after you did, which is hilarious because I probably heard it from you because I was probably in your chat.
Because it was in an episode of the podcast like right after I did that stream, so everyone was like, "Oh, whoa, I know that."
But that's the point I'm trying to get at, is that some of the most rewarding podcast episodes that you do are the ones that really drive conversation, or in your case, Hammy, subconsciously leak things into other podcasters who didn't spew it out of their mouths going forward. I mean, so like Cactus, your example, that's not stuff you're saying, but you set the stage for that conversation to happen. If you don't like reach out to Volty and be like, "Hey, kid, I'll give you a microphone for 3 hours," then that conversation never gets started. So that's the real value in all of these kinds of things. That's what makes it rewarding to do and what makes it beneficial towards the community. Now here's my other kind of thought that I have with this. Do you consider yourself storytellers in a sense with what you do? Do you feel like what you're doing is just like a way to document what happened in the community? And that's kind of what I enjoy about my series going on for so long is I forget more than I remember in this community, but I could go back to an episode of me talking about something in 2021 and be right back into where the community was at the time, and like seeing the people in chat that I completely forgot ever existed again. So I feel like that's the value in this as well, is that we're kind of like use with our own bias attached to everything, documenting the history of the scene as we move along.
Yeah, me personally, I agree with, yeah. I'd say I'm a storyteller, yeah, in terms of both in commentary and in the podcasting, because it's not as cut and dry as writing down a story, like making something that's, a fictional story.
Right.
But in all the episodes that I make, when I'm vaguely planning them out, because they're not scripted, it's all just rambling. But I do kind of make like a couple bullet points of, these are the topics that I want to talk about in this order. Like the most recent episode, I basically made a structure of what are like the 3 pillars of how like a tournament works, and I talked about them in like a way that kind of flowed together, that kind of like, to a viewer, especially somebody who might not be as interested in competitive Splatoon or know a lot, it is a story. It's like, here is a story of how these things function, and it's like presenting my perspective on these topics in a way that is like digestible, like a story. And that's kind of how I like to pose it.
I think for myself, I'd like to, I guess I could say kind of, but I really kind of see my podcast episodes as like the book from one of the Paper Mario games, where like at the end of a mission, the book closes. And I feel like in a sense, my episodes kind of feel like a story in time, that if you were to pick up that book again and just look at it, you'd be like, I remember this situation. I remember why this conversation even happened. And like, I try to have questions, of course, not based on just the topic at hand, but I like to bring a little bit more personality, I guess, to make it more personal, right? I like to ask those questions of like, how did you even get into Splatoon? Why are you here? Right? What got you into the scene in the first place? What brought you here? What keeps you going? Like, what makes you keep going to this day? Why are you still active in it? And what do you currently do? And what got you to this point where you're here having this conversation? Sometimes those beginning parts could be a lot longer than the actual topic at hand, or sometimes it's vice versa. And usually the parts that are longer are the more meaningful. I feel like not just in general to like myself, but also just to the person, right? Like, as much as they might love to talk about like, oh, how they got here and everything, maybe they just really feel so strongly about the topic that they want to just dive all into it. Or sometimes the other way, like they feel it's like not that long of a story to have to tell, but they would love to tell you how, they got here from the beginning. Was it the Splatoon trailers they saw on their TV? Was it a friend from a friend of a friend who was like, yeah, there's this weird game on the Wii U called Splatoon. You shoot ink at people. Whatever it was that got people interested. So I love seeing that kind of, giving myself that analogy of how I feel. My ability just kind of feel like that book, at the end of that, it's all over, it closes right up, and next thing you know, you're on to the next one. Like, it's just reliving a memory.
Yeah. And what's really interesting that you bring up there about people, wanting to talk about their background and their history with it, is a lot of people want to talk and want to share their opinions and feelings on things, and they just don't, other than posting in social media. Like, I don't know like, when I made Critical Linking, when I put the first episode out, a lot of people were immediately like into it and asking me about the future. I got so many DMs, and like, even like I got like blue sky messages from people I barely knew. And they were like, hey, I have a thing that would be fun to talk about in Critical Linking. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why not go to like, first of all, why not go to like the Cactus Patch or the Popcast, like an established podcast, and talk about a topic? And 2, you could just record yourself talking. You don't have to be like, hey, I want to go on this podcast. I can talk about a topic. Because I think they went to me because it was like, it's like, hey, like, yeah, critical linking, it's about issues in the community. I think this is an issue. And I'm like, great. You can also talk about it on your own. You don't have to use me as a catalyst. You can turn on your own camera. You can like make a video. Like there, you know, you don't have to kind of do it. So I think it is an important thing to have resources like again, just having an open mic on the Cactus Patch for people to come in and talk about their story, because people want to talk about themselves, but they might not feel like anyone cares. But as soon as it's an existing platform, an existing medium, suddenly people care, I guess, from their perspectives.
I think that sometimes it's also about like people just want to hear your opinion too on it, right? Like they might find it really interesting how your take might be on just the previous topics you've had, and they'll shoot that idea out there saying like, I want to see what you truly think about it, not just myself, because like they'll probably have their own intentions initially behind it, but it's just sometimes getting that conversation started from, like you said, an established platform where like there could be more eyes on it and more people drawn to want to discuss it, rather than if it was just created on just like a random 3 subscriber YouTube channel that they can maybe put on Blue Sky, but of course they don't have that large of a following. You know, how deep can it really run? And I think that's where a lot of people just need to understand and just start taking that risk, because, you know, like us 3, we didn't come up here because we already had that massive following prior. We did it because either we were bored, we just had an idea, we had the opportunity, but we just ran with it. And we didn't care if we started, we were at, 0. And, it was just more of, this is what I like to do. This is something I really wanted to try. And I want to push for it. And I want to see just what happens. And you just keep creating them. And then eventually, sometimes enough people find interesting that you start garnishing that following, start garnishing that viewership of like, I want to see that when the next one's going to happen. And I want to know what that topic's going to be.
It's not just that people enjoy talking, which obviously they do. And, telling their story, like Cactus mentioned, one of the longest parts of his episodes is when people just like, how did I get into Splatoon? Because everyone's got a story to tell. But people are also really interested if you say something about them, especially in a positive way. And that's where the podcast like took off in the first 50 episodes or so, is because I spent time talking about other people and giving praise to other teams that nobody else was saying anything about. And they would tune in and listen. And then when I stop talking about them, they leave. But then the next team comes in. And then eventually that's where you kind of build up, a reputation, and getting to meet other people is by talking about them. And it's so easy to say nice things about other people as well. And then you can transition into the harder stuff. Now that I've lured you in by being nice, now I can start talking about the things that I feel like you need to know about. And you build up a little bit of confidence in yourself through that as well. But yeah, people like to talk. And I think people just don't know how to talk. And that's kind of another, like when you have a guest on, and Cactus, you know this because this is like the whole crux of your podcast. Mine's like maybe 10% having a guest on. It's hard to get a guest who's actually interesting. You can have them on for a good topic, but there's sometimes where like having Doughboy on my show, or when I had Jim from Squid School on my show years ago, like those are so easy because those people have interesting things to say. And it's more like informative for me, or like having K-Bot on your show is just like an easy episode to have. But then there's other people you'll have on. You're like, okay, you're on because the topic is interesting, but you suck at talking. It's like, how do I just get you to speak? Because you have a great story to tell. You're just not experienced enough, or maybe you're a little bit too nervous or whatever. That's holding you back from telling your story. We get into this conversation. I'm kind of like bouncing all over the place, but it does lead into the point of, why do we not see more player interviews when it comes to like tournament highlights and stuff like that? And it's like, have you listened to some of these players talk? It's
why I don't interview top level. I mean, sorry to say that, hate me if you want, but it's the reason why I stopped. After my first 10 to 15. I would sometimes take the winning teams from a major LAN, a local. Sometimes if there was like an online major, it's like some people want to see that. They want to hear what the players have to say. After doing it 2 or 3 times, I was like, I'm good. I'm good. Maybe I'll ask a TO because they'll have a way better story about this one random, goofball and help desk than this entire team did about how they won the entire event. And yeah, they just some people don't know how to talk. Some people just don't find maybe their story that interesting. They might not see the vision that we do or that, the viewers might. But there is always a story to tell, and it really comes down to just how interested they are to tell it. And it is, yeah, like you said, Falcon, it's the biggest reason why I just kind of shied away from that. Maybe I'll highlight maybe someone who is a player and something else in the community, whether that be, a tournament organizer, a commentator, or maybe just a LAN host, anything else under the sun. Because they've worked hard and they've been around enough people to kind of have that speaking voice of where they're not afraid to have a conversation once they're a little bit in a comfortable spot, which is a partial reason why I ask so many you know, poke questions of how'd you get into this, why you do it, et cetera, because it builds up comfortability, and that allows these people to finally feel a little bit more comfortable in front of the microphone where they are. Sometimes it helps them to understand sometimes they'll probably have the Twitch or YouTube chat open on the side just to see how many viewers there are, etc. And it also helps them too, because sometimes their friends will show up and they'll love to be able to see, oh, my friends are here to support me. Like that helps me ease my nerves a little bit. Now let's dive into these questions.
And it's well, go ahead, Hammy. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say what I find interesting, because you guys were talking about how it's hard to, a lot of the top level players in Splatoon are not the best for interviews or for podcasts and stuff. But as somebody who watches a lot of other esports, a lot of other scenes have those top level interviews, and those players are a lot more charismatic. So it makes me curious if it's just a coincidental thing where a lot of top level Splatoon players just don't care enough. If it's because of the culture of the game, like is it something that the productions have done where maybe if we just force the interviews, that eventually they'll get used to it and start getting more involved in it. If it's just a thing where maybe the way that Splatoon works, it draws in people who just don't want those interactions. But it is a curious thing that it seems like a Splatoon specific issue with that.
It goes two ways. I think it's fair to use this word to describe folks like us with what we do. You could say we are like the media when it comes to competitive Splatoon, in a sense. We are not trained or experienced in this. Even through commentary, I never had somebody sit down with me and be like, okay, here's how this is supposed to work. We've just been winging it for years. That goes for the players as well. The players don't have a lot of experience talking to the media either, because when would they ever do that? Unless you made you went on stage at PAX West at an Overlord event, you probably weren't in front of a camera talking about competitive Splatoon. So there's not a lot of opportunities for players to get better at talking to the media. And for those of us in the grassroots scene that are trying to communicate with them and get them to tell their story, we don't have a lot of experience of getting that information out of them either. It's not just asking the question, it's how do you phrase the question in the right way while also at the same time not trying to lead them to the answer you want them to give you. So it kind of goes both ways, just a lot of inexperience. And oh, by the way, a lot of our top players have been in the scene for a long time, but they started off when they were babies. I mean, who is arguably the best player in the world right now? Lobster, right? Isn't that kid 16? I know absolutely nothing about that player, but probably a horrible interview just because I would have been bad if I was on a microphone at that age. And so it kind of goes, I think it just speaks to how inexperienced our community is in general. But now that the overlords have been getting more involved, now that there's been more at a Riptide, IPL's been putting microphones in front of people and trying to get some more content out of that. More people getting into commentary. I think that's been trending in a good direction. But But yeah, I think top level players have, I mean, Moonlight's great. Like you can get, you just reach out to Moonlight and you just be like, hey, just give me like one player. And that's the problem. When you get like an entire team, they just get into a bunch of inside jokes that mean nothing to anybody. And it's like, you guys don't realize no one cares about this. So you just give me just like one player that I can just be the spokesperson for your team. Keo is fantastic. And again, because Keo's probably had a Nintendo camera microphone in his face for the vast majority of his adult life up to this point. And there's several other. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't have thought Volti would be as like interesting, just because you're not used to hearing that player in that kind of a context. But yeah, when all of us kind of are a bit awkward, I guess is where I'm getting at. I don't think that's like I think that's more of a state of where our community is versus like all the other esports where it's like an actual quote unquote esport for them.
Yeah. And I guess the most important thing is to kind of go back to what we talked about earlier, where, you know, to get into podcasting, this kind of stuff, you just have to do it and just start building up that experiences. Even though there may be a lot of awkward interviews, or like whether it's like just like during tournament interviews or interviews with players just like on a podcast, we have to just start kind of doing it, and then people will build up that experience over time, and just exposing players to that element of like, hey, if you want to compete in a game, there is a social aspect to it. There is like a media aspect to it where, I mean, I guess if it's more of a traditional esport, I guess there's that discussion of if Splatoon should be counted as an esport and if we should push to make it more broadcast heavy, more media heavy. But yeah, there are a lot of people who are really good at it. Again, Moonlight, when I was at Riptide, I did that video where I was like asking all the teams, you know, how they would perform, and then like cut straight to what the result was. When I asked Moonlight to do it, immediately they took it over. Like every other person I did, I was like, yeah, like, you can, you know, do whatever. I'm like, hey, Moonlight, can I do this? And they're like choreographing it. They're like, okay, we're going to like kind of turn your back, or our backs to you a little bit. And then you're going to ask us, and then we're all going to turn around. We're going to react. Like they took over the scene. Like they were like, we have a plan. This is how we're going to do it. So like Moonlight, you know, they have that charisma. They have like, they just, you have to have fun with it. That is the entire point of it. I don't feel like I'm good at talking or podcasting. I just have fun talking. I just don't like, I'm a social person. This is what I enjoy doing, is just rambling and talking with people. And so just like that natural enjoyment and the charisma kind of comes through, and people say, oh, you're good at this. And I think, you know, Moonlight has that same quality. They just have fun. They just enjoy what they do, and it comes through. And so when it comes to things like this, like talking and like being interviewed, they're just able to take it so well, because it's like, yeah, there's nothing to worry about here. This is just a good time.
And I think you also look at how a lot of different parts of the scene are like trying to expand a little bit of that interview process. I know locals are the biggest expansion right now when it comes to player interviews, especially if it's maybe once or twice throughout the event, or some you get to like, I know the last Big Dapple I went to, it was like every other match you had a player of the winning team come onto the stage and then have like a brief 2 to 5 minute, you know, how did that game go, walk us through it, etc. And I think finding out the ways on how we can expand on that and kind of build up that moment of like, hey, like you get an opportunity to spotlight yourself and your team. Like, so it's almost like adding another incentive to winning, that like you get to do this as well, and it could be really fun and really cool. And then I think just expanding off of that thought process, and I know sometimes like for some majors there was like the attempts of it. I know the Splash Go event that IPL was doing an English cast of, had some of the top Japan players, when they would win matches, come on, have like a brief little interview process. So being able to expand on the media aspects in the scene could really help. And, you know, I know, Hammy, you said earlier, it's like, it's a matter of like, do we consider Splatoon an esport to an extent where we should be doing it? I think it's more of a not if, like just when. Like, why not take the gamble on it, right? And have fun with it, whether it be like a YouTube short worth of a clip, or, you know, a full video's length, or even just like a highlight attached to an online major or just in tournaments in general, just to give that opportunity to get these players kind of used to the meeting aspect and maybe push other people to kind of realize like, hey, like there's something that could be done with this. And for all you know, someone will see that. Maybe the next major LAN, they'll have the top 8, and after each match, a player will go onto the behind the scenes and go to the commentary booth and talk about that match. And for all you know, someone viewing at home will be like, I got an idea to do something with this even more. And then you could snowball from there.
I was just kind of thinking of the best example of, okay, yeah, we really suck at just talking to the community, like to a camera in general. The first Splatoon 3 tournament that the Overlords ran before Riptide, before Splatoon 3 even came out. It was like the week before it came out. They were like kind of demoing it. And they did like little player interviews with like every team that was there. And the question was like, what do you enjoy about Splatoon 3? And Legend just awkwardly said, I like crab. I like crab. Just said that like 3-4 times in a row. And everybody on social media clowned them for that. So I just kind of think, you know what? We've gotten better since then. But that's also an example of like, okay, we're obviously not experienced with this. If all we just, I just like the crap. I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
okay.
I forgot
and
all about that.
Yeah, but as long as we have that natural growth over time, as long as we're not receding, like natural. If Splatoon, like the competitive scene, it's all we can do is just keep chipping away at things and keep improving over time, because people like to doom post and people like to say whatever, but we're constantly improving and getting better, especially because a lot of people are just getting older. They're getting more experienced in life. They're becoming more mature. They're becoming more tenured, and like get to a point where they just have more skills, more abilities, and it's we're in a good direction. It is just a slow burn, but it's nice to start trying to poke and prod at things and kind of force things to start, getting the ball rolling on them. Now I will say we have a whole other topic to cover today. We have to still talk about the 11.0 patch. So I don't want to see if you guys have any closing remarks about podcasts as a whole. And I also have another question I'd like to ask as well, which is, with the podcast you guys are running now, like what is the future plans? What are the future plans for the podcast, and what are the future plans for the Cactus patch? Where do you see this going as time goes on?
I'm supposed to have goals set. I don't know.
You don't have to. I'm just curious if there's any grand scheme, or if it's just business as usual forever until it dies.
My goal is to, there's always ideas that I have in my head, and then I realize those ideas require effort, and that's where I check out. Because as you guys may know, the podcast is about as low effort as it could possibly be, to where I still enjoy it. And that's the secret to me doing 300 some odd episodes at this point is, as long as it's still fun for me, I'm going to keep doing it. But I'm not going to break any news here or anything, but I see a future where it goes away sooner rather than later, just because my dad responsibilities as our kid is now trying to figure out how to not poop his pants and get the poo into the toilet. That might lead to me doing maybe a more different version, where kind of like that episode, the episode I had you on, Hammy, was more like a trial thing. Was what if I just wasn't sitting there talking and I just kind of produce the thing and just let somebody else kind of talk and just time in here and there. So that might be the future of the podcast, is less involvement from me, which is hilarious considering I barely do anything other than just talk right now. But that's the future, is that would be the future of the podcast, I guess.
So the future of the podcast is the beep approach. You
no. Oh, why do you think I'm here? I'm just sitting here trying to learn how they do everything, which is great, because I didn't even get the topics for what we're going to talk about until like an hour and a half before we went live, which is like, okay, this is even lower effort than what I do. So this
Yeah,
works
and
out good. This
and
is
I'm
perfect.
the host. I'm the host, and I got those topics like an hour before you did. That is what Beep is. To pull the curtain, Beep
Yeah.
is just like I was the host of the first episode of Beep, and I was at MomoCon, and I just got a DM from Vapor. It said, "Hey, do you want to be in a podcast?" And I'm like, "Why?" It's like, because we like hearing you talk. We think you'll be a good host. I went, okay. And then like I just showed up on an episode and they just had me talk. Like that's all they just find
Yeah.
people who are interesting and make them talk for you. You don't have to do any of the talking yourself.
Which,
I
by the way,
think is
I'm
funny
not.
because producing's the hard part.
Yeah, and I'm not dunking on Beep at all. I actually like. Okay, I like the fact that they trust me enough to be like, okay, here's what we're talking about, and in a couple of minutes, just go. And it's like, okay, cool. That's what I like. So I'm
Yeah, it is
glad to
supposed to
see
be-
that was the case.
It is supposed to be very casual. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be like Splat Chat is like a reference to Plat Chat, which is CKK. What game was that for? I can't remember. Was it Valo or was it Overwatch? Yeah, it was for Overwatch. So it's supposed to be just like a casual kind of whatever, and they just ran with it, and now it exists now. But I don't even work at Beep, so who cares? Cactus, what are the future plans for the Cactus Patch?
A great question. I had a similar start to the Cactus Patch. So I got a random DM from Pinky, one of the head TOs of Dapple, and it's funny because like my first thought wasn't like, oh, this is really cool. It was like, why me? Like, you think you'd want a representative that's also in the EU to host EU side podcast, but you know what? I guess I'm here to fill those NA time slots. Yeah, I mean the future for me, I don't really know. I kind of slow down a bit, especially because like I'm still trying to figure out some life stuff now. Figure out where I'm moving forward towards with things. Recently turned. This is gonna sound crazy. I'm gonna sound like an unk. 25, a couple days ago.
Young.
Because compared to y'all,
you're on a show with me and Pop
in this room, in this Beep room, I'm the youngest. But yeah,
actually, I don't think you are. I think our producer's the youngest.
Okay, second youngest, and I'll take. But yeah, I'm trying to reevaluate just some life situations. But I've been trying to think of like new ideas for the podcast because like we're at a point where like yeah, the NA League happened. It's cool. It's gonna happen again. There's some maybe a potential routine we're running into with majors online, so that could be fun. But it really started with Roa, just an opportunity to do community spotlights with players, and really just try to shine the spotlight on individuals in the scene that maybe just don't get that spotlight often, or at least only are known for like one thing, and there's more to them, right? Just be able to kind of, as Pop mentioned before, I kind of give like the stage to someone and be like, hey, just say here's some questions to help you along the way. But I think this year that's going to be my biggest goal for the Cactus Patch is just try to have more episodes. It's about individuals that a lot of people maybe haven't heard of or have heard speak before, and give them just the opportunity just to talk about themselves, for a change.
All right, sounds good. Now, we are going to do a very graceful transition and definitely not a hard cut straight into a very different topic. This is the part where half of the viewers actually care about because I mean, we're 5 days away from Splatoon 11.0 dropping. So, the Beep overlords want us to talk about some of our predictions, some of our copium, some of just our thoughts about what the future of the game itself is going to look like, because there are new things getting added in 11.0, and just I want to extend that discussion as well to any future patches coming to Splatoon 3 in the rest of its little lifespan. So this is just an open discussion. I have no structure to this whatsoever. Just what do you guys think is going to happen in Splatoon 11.0? What are some things that you would like to see but might not necessarily believe are going to happen? What positive changes could Nintendo give us that like would make the game interesting?
So here's my thought with this is that no, there's not going to be anything groundbreaking or interesting with this. I think when they're talking about game modes, if I had to put like money down, I would say we're getting tricolor stage, and what's the other thing that could have been added? Somebody else gave us a suggestion, but it's going to be stuff like that. Challenges, yes.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
those
yeah.
are going to be more private battle. That would be my guess with this, is because we as a community like to overshoot. Oh, they're going to like give us a whole new game. We're finally getting rocket mode. It's like, no, bro, they're not going to just add a whole new feature into this game this late into the life cycle. But here's what I want to do. The patches themselves. And yeah, there's like obviously like some suggestions we could have, but I just want to point out, I'm going to list off the changes from the most recent patch, the 10.1 that came out in September. I want you guys to not think too hard about it, but just give a yes or no if you think this change, for whatever it was, had a significant impact on like how we play the game now, or how that specific weapon is even played. Do you guys want to do that?
Yeah,
sure.
I'm down. Why not?
Okay. And we're gonna skip some of the crazier ones. But first off, Splash-O-Matic got an increase the speeds of shots by 3% and decreased the radius inked by spray droplets by 3%. Huge impact for the weapon, yes or no?
No.
No. As a Splash player, I don't see a difference.
Okay. Let's go to the 52 gal. Increase the speed of shots by 39% without changing the flight distance. Increase the amount of ink consumption by 15%. Yes or no? Change. It's significant change for the weapon.
I don't think so. No. I feel like when that came out, I was like, this is significant, but I don't remember. Like it's. I'd say no.
On a
Well, you
basis
look at the
of what I've
numbers.
seen, no.
Yeah.
Like on visibility and like the competitive like scene, just on from tournaments, from lands, etc. It has not increased the amount I've seen it, so I'm definitely gonna say no.
Well, you see the numbers, you think, oh, 39%. That's like,
Yeah.
closer to 100 than 3% is. And, there's the top level players. If they were on instead of the three of us, they'd be dissecting down. Like, it should have been 37.5, I think. 39 was a little bit too much. For the vast majority of the human beings on this planet, they wouldn't care. Like, everybody else who owns the video game, they wouldn't even know or care. Splatbrella, nobody uses that really competitively. You got buffed essentially, but I think it's fair to say that didn't have an impact. Can we skip Splattershot Nova? Clash Blaster. Oh my gosh, I forgot the Dowser dualies were even a thing.
They had gotten a buff.
I was commentating something a little while back, and someone pulled out Dowsers, and I legitimately couldn't remember the name of the weapon.
Was it a skill capped event?
I can't remember. I've been slacking the commentary, so I haven't done too many events recently. It might have been a CCA thing, but I just remember seeing the Dowsers going, I forgot those were a thing. What are they called? Because I hadn't seen them in months before that point.
Now, when you go down to the special weapons, Zipcaster, increase the radius, deals damage of 45 damage by approximately 9%. Maybe you can make the argument. What about Ink Vac, though? The Ink Vac buff increased the amount of opponent ink that can be sucked up. I like that they use the term sucked up. Increase the radiance of ink shot explosion with the amount of the opponent ink that was sucked up is at a maximum by approximately 10%. Ink Vac, now that we're like, 5 months into this, is it fair to say that's the winner here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say just because of the usage of 2 game modes, and that's it.
But how long did it take us to get to that point? I mean, here in the West,
Like
we only
3
really saw
months.
Vac make like a big mainstream appearance during Rainmaker in certain modes, to your point, and really be highlighted in the NA League.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like frame 1, people were using Ink Vac. It took them a while to get to that point. And then the Inkstorm, you only use Inkstorm if it's just like on the, like you don't go out of your way to do Inkstorm. And then lastly, this thing always gets me because people, when a weapon changes special points, that's the one thing everyone, oh man, that you can't play this weapon anymore. Like it takes you 10 more points to get cooler. It's dead. And it's like, how much is 10 points? You just sneeze that out of your weapon, right? And you'd pretty much just get it there. And like,
Yeah.
how often are you in a situation, and again, top level players are going to chime in and say, well, all the time, Pop Gun, but how often are you in a situation to where you just build up a special and you just hold on to it because you're waiting for a better opportunity to use it? Whereas you could have just been like, well, that time I was holding on to it, I could have just got like 10 more paint that it was required anyways. So I don't see, I see those as kind of like kicks in the shit. Like, yeah, if Sniper Rider gets a 10-point or a 20-point buff, which by the way, the only weapon here that got a 20-point increase to their special was Sorella Brella. Who the hell was spamming the ink jets with that in solo queue enough to where they said, that's the one we got to get rid of. That's the one that needs the effort right there. But like my point being with all this was the last patch a huge game changer. And if the answer is no, why would you expect the next one this late into the game to be a huge game changer?
I think it has to do, like, at least from my perspective, is just the fact of, one, the weird wording that multiple different of the Nintendo and Splatoon accounts used, and two, the fact that they just announced it so early for no reason. Now, like, do I believe it's going to be a game changer? No. Like, I agree, like, with the point you said earlier, they're probably just going to add some kind of new challenge, or they'll add, like, a slightly adjusted mechanic to probably Splatfest, because they got to keep reusing those.
Yeah.
But, like, truthfully, like, I think the hype is just around the fact that it was just announced so early. Like, that it's not really a common theme. For it to be just such a unique experience, to be told that's gonna happen, like, oh, look out for 2 weeks from now, something big's coming. Like, it's like dangling an empty box in front of someone and just being like, you could get $500 or you get a nickel. Which is it gonna be?
Yeah, and for me, I think it's, well, one, because it's 11.0 with it being like a major patch, like in terms of like the numbering scheme. A lot of people are expecting grander things, but ultimately, like, nothing ever happens that drastically changes the game. The thing that drastically changes the game is them giving us Splatoon 4. When they give us a new game with a whole new framework and everything. But it would be interesting to see them throw some big things in here with it being so late into lifespan. I can't remember if we talked about this while we were live or before in like the waiting room, but this is kind of the time for Nintendo to kind of use Splatoon like a playground, because right now it's kind of that transition period of like, Splatoon 4 is going to happen eventually. Like, I feel like it would be weird if Nintendo's like, yeah, this is the last Splatoon game. We're not doing them anymore, especially where they're making a spin-off. Like, it seems like the series is going to continue. So I would like to see them try new things, like, try, whether it's like a big change to like an underused weapon. Like, what if they did something weird to like the Nova or the Gootuber or something, like those weapons that are really undervalued or underused, or if they make changes to I can't even think of specifics because I'm not a game designer. That's kind of my stance. Like, I don't know what will make the game good or fun, but and even just like some meta things, like the biggest speculations I've seen, like Popgun said, is adding more options to private battles. I would also love to see if challenges were all like, kind of like how in Splatoon 2 Salmon Run was like only a shift once in a while and now it's consistent. I think it'd be fun if challenges were consistent. If they didn't make it show up once every week or two, if it was just like there was always a challenge rotation on, kind of like just like open or X or whatever. But yeah, I would like to see them add some quality of life to make the game a bit more fun, and also maybe in terms of the gameplay itself, just try new things and just fuck around and find out. I'm not allowed to swear. I'm gonna pretend I'm allowed to swear.
You crossed that bridge already. There's some Catholic nun listening to this saying, "That's it. I'm out." They said fuck. I can't deal with that.
There's no replacement term for fuck around and find out. I was like trying to like think, is there another equivalent phrase, and there just isn't. So I feel like we're all kind of on the same page, is that we don't have any specific like, oh, this would fix the game, or I bet this is gonna happen. I feel like we all just seem like people who are like, Nintendo will put something in the game, probably not very significant, but enough of a change that it makes things interesting.
Well, I did see this
Uh,
get suggested, and I don't know. This wouldn't like be in the fix the game category, but it would change it up significantly. Is finding some way to where when I just like get a decent score in X rank and Clan Blitz, that I don't have to wait 30 minutes to find the next match in the lobby that I can play in. And I think the solution to that is getting rid of the region split and just saying if you're at a generic skill level, regardless of what side of the planet you're on, and we can't find anybody else close to you, we're just going to throw you in the Japan region, and vice versa. Like, hey, you're up late at night at Japan, you can't find anybody, we're just going to throw you in with NA just so you can play. And I would like to see something like that. And I know there's going to be people that are like, oh, I want the best possible experience, and everybody should just play in the Japan region. I don't know if it's Takaroka or whatever. But for me, who's at a point in my life where I just want to play the damn game. And it won't even let me play the game. And there's probably a gazillion casuals who don't even know that competitive exists, that can't even play the game because they're just like queuing up. They can't get into a lobby, or when they do, one person instantly DCs and it's like, oh my gosh, I got to start this all over again. And they just drop the game. So I think that's more of a concern. I think that should be a concern that should be addressed, is just if I turn on Splatoon 3, I should be able to play a game. And I think that's why you're not going to see challenges be consistent, because then it just draws people away from the other. Okay, well, now everybody's doing challenges. That just makes finding an X rank match even harder. And I think that's why Salmon Run was like on that schedule thing. Is like, okay, well, now you guys got to go play the actual game. Like, we need the player base to do that. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what the solution is, or if even getting rid of regions would be a thing. But that's a huge concern that needs to be fixed. If that's all they did, if the patch was just like, that's all we adjusted was just that, this would be the best patch to come out so far.
And
Yeah.
what I find interesting is with the topic of matchmaking, Splatoon kind of backed itself into a corner in terms of how it's structured, because like Splatoon is most comparable to a hero shooter, where it's there's a set 3 or 4 modes in the game that you play, but most of them just have quick play and ranked. It's the same as in both. Whereas Splatoon has Turf War, the casual mode, then it has Anarchy for the 4 different ranked modes, and then X Battle if you really care about those modes. But in other games, it puts you into one of the modes, which are all very similar in how they function, and then you pick a character based on the mode and the map. Whereas Splatoon, it gives you, it says you're playing this mode now in these two maps, pick your weapon ahead of time and hope you end up on a good team. And the way that rotation system works, there are so many times I say, I want to play Splatoon. I pick up my phone, I look at the app to see the schedule, and I see the rotation, and I go, I'm not playing Splatoon right now. I'm not in the mood to play that mode. I'm not in the mood to play those maps. And it's like 2 maps where like there's no one weapon I want to play in both those maps, and I'm gonna get whichever map I have the bad weapon for, and it just it discourages people from playing in certain rotations. And then suddenly, yeah, it adds to the matchmaking issues that, more people don't want to play certain rotations, then people are in different regions. There's so many barriers that Nintendo's kind of set for themselves there. So it's a weird system.
Well,
And
you also
if
have the fact that the recent updates have all been based on making open more competitive. Like they added the power ranking system to open in Anarchy, and it's like that's what X rank was for. So like I guess Nintendo is trying to dive more deeper into the competitive grooves with Splatoon, which I mean fair. You are pretty much making a competitive shooter game, and you're obviously putting more effort into it with the NA League that we've seen, but it's just an aspect of like, the main focus that we've seen any kind of change to any of the overall systems and game modes is the fact that they just find ways to tweak the fact that you get a power level for a weapon you play in either a solo anarchy or open, and then that puts you into another grouping of players who are that same kind of level or way better, and it's just like a less important X rank.
Open
Yeah.
should be quick play. And it's not. It's League.
Mm-hmm.
It's League that you can play in by yourself. And that was like, okay, so that deflates the fun for me, because I could just, in my mind, and it probably started out this way, just, okay, I'm just going to play. It doesn't mean it. If I lose, it shouldn't mean anything. If I win, it shouldn't mean anything. Kind of like Turf War. Like, I just want to play Clan Blitz. Just chill, casually. Well, okay, you do that, and then you're going up against like a low ink team that's using that as their practice session because they can't find a scrim or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, it's me and 3 other schmucks versus an actual team. That's not fun anymore. And then they DM you afterward, we beat Popgun, and it's like, oh gosh, I hate you so much. But and then so like that should have been a thing. The ranked mode, like the ranked anarchy mode, is like, okay, now it's just like a little bit more serious, but it's also kind of redundant considering that X rank is right there. And all you have to do is get to S plus, and then they just throw you into, like, you're ready for this. And it's like, no, you're not, but go right ahead. So it seemed like they're getting you to X rank quicker, but there's still no incentive to play X rank if series exist. If you want to do the open thing / League of Challenges, it's I don't play a lot of other shoot. I play Halo online, but I would assume the Halo Infinite player base is larger than maybe CKK can get us the player base for Halo Infinite versus Splatoon 3. I don't know, but I would assume the player base, especially when you're splitting the regions, doesn't fit the amount of options that you can do with a game that is 3-4 years old at this point. Technically, on not an obsolete, but an older generation. I mean, this isn't even a Splatoon, a Switch 2 game that we're playing here. Somebody's gonna have to dumb this like I'm 5 here. What are these? Is that my heart rate right now? What is
this?
That?
This is the Steam charts for Halo. So there's 2,400 people playing Halo right now, and their all-time peak is 270,000.
Okay.
Which, like, I feel like Splatoon beats that out.
Well,
I don't
mind you, it
actually
does
know.
also say
There's
that
no way to-
all-time peak
there's no
was
way to
like
know.
4 years ago, which honestly is
Exactly.
on par with Splatoon 3's if you really think about it, right? Because everybody was on it when it first came out, and then I would honestly argue to say that those numbers are probably pretty comparable. Now, if you change that a bit, right? And let's think about how many players are actually competitive for Splatoon, and then add the next layer playing X rank. Probably 80% of that base is playing Turf War because of the casual scene. You have 15 playing Anarchy and Open, and then you got the last 5% that are playing X rank. Or sorry, not playing, queuing for X rank because they can't even get a match because there's not enough people at that level set that they can actually get a match for having like a 2,300 plus X power.
If there was one data point I would love to see from Nintendo, it would be how many people just play Turf War. Because I never play Turf War. Like, I'll play it during Splatfest because they give you that ranked option. Or I just want to like mess around with my friends, and fight for like vanilla ice cream or whatever. But I guarantee you, I would bet that the vast majority of people that own the game just play that Turf War. Mm-hmm. And you, first off, you have to do it until you reach a certain level, which if you're new and you don't really like, I don't vibe with this, I'm just going to go play something else. But I wonder how many people just stick to that and never really experience actual Splatoon for what it actually is with the game modes that we use in competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, queuing up
I
wise, it's the only game mode that you can actually get in quickly. Like it's even Anarchy and Open, they take a while for you to actually kind of get in. I mean, not as much as X Rank, but there's the two game modes where you're taking about half that load time just to get in because Open's full of teams trying to compete or friend groups that are going to go in and try to get together, and Open allows you to have anywhere between the 1 and the full 4, so you could get paired with 3 random kids who got the Friday off, no homework, let's play some Splatoon tonight. And then of course just there's Anarchy where you're just waiting because hey, your weapon level power is not that high or it's too high, and it's gonna take a little bit longer to find players at that same level for you.
Yeah, so it definitely seems like Nintendo doesn't have a clear idea of what they want Anarchy to look like versus what they want X to look like. And on top of that too, I was looking in the background for something, so I remember reading this years ago and I found it. In 2018, when they were preparing to release X Rank for the first time, the Squid Research Lab on Tumblr posted statistical data, and it showed that only 1% of all people who own the game made it to S plus 10 or higher. Now, this is back in 2018, so numbers have changed, but if you take 1% of all copies of Splatoon, that is the number of people that are playing X Rank, essentially. And if you put it down all the way to S plus, that's only 6.6% of players. So you're taking an already small pool of people, making it even smaller, and then dividing it between all these different aspects, like if the rotation's good or not, if they're playing open versus series versus X, which all have the same modes. They're just different distinctions, and different queue systems. It's one of those weird things, but I don't want to cut us off, but the issue with putting the 3 podcasters in one episode is that we are going to just ramble we will just keep talking forever. We haven't even really talked about version 11 predictions because we didn't really have much. So CKK, our producer for the day, has made a game for us to play about potential predictions for version 11. So I think that would be a good way to end off this episode, because this was supposed to be a short one, and unsurprisingly, because we're going to keep yapping, we're already closing in on the hour-and-a-half mark. So CKK, would you present us with whatever? Okay, yeah, here it is. There's just a graphic for it. So
I love this.
I okay, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a $25 budget, and these are options of things we can spend our money on. I like the Nova buff is crazy as an option.
It was chosen
So
by.
now, are we gonna do this based on what we think is actually gonna happen or what we want to happen?
This
What you
is,
want to
I'm
happen,
pretty sure
what you
this
want to
is,
happen.
yeah, this is like an
Okay.
ideal game for us.
Okay.
See, okay, honestly, I'm already looking at this. Here's my take. First of all, never Zipcaster upgrade. No way. Zipcaster is the bane of my team's existence. But looking at this, Tournament Manager update, 100% yes. I wish we used Tournament Manager. Tournament Manager has so many untapped resources that we do not use. For anyone who doesn't know, the Tournament Manager, every single match has a URL attached to it, kind of like Sendo. Like when you're on Sendo, you can go to every match and it's a different webpage. The Tournament Manager on the phone, you can open it up on your PC, and it keeps stats. I ran a test tournament like 2 years ago on the app. I can open up the webpage and it shows all of the kills, the assists, the number of specials, the number of paint, what weapons they were used. It shows all of these stats from the games, and it keeps it forever. That would be so good for production. But the Tournament Manager app is just not good enough. There's not enough options. It's terrible for TOs. It's terrible for players. It's just good for production. So if we could get an update on that, that would be huge. So that 100%, that is, I'm putting $3 on that. I would probably do new ranked mode would be Copium. I don't even know what a new ranked mode would be. If anything, I think they should make a competitive version of Turf War. If they can not just make it 5 minutes long, but like make a ranked version of Turf War to use for tournaments, to use for ranked, to kind of be like, hey, here's Turf War as like a way to get in the game. Now here's the competitive version, because we like we kind of have splat zones, but it's not quite turf war. So I'd say a
Well,
new ranked mode that's like turf war.
You're talking about what they do with Splatfest, which they literally do ranked turf war. And it's like, why do
Yeah,
you
pretty much.
I actually like turf war when there's like something on the line. Why can't you? Yeah, I would. If that was the new mode, I'd spend $10 on that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would like a new ranked mode that is like a turf war equivalent in the anarchy rotation. I think that because that would also be healthy for the competitive scene as well to have in tournaments. But yeah, so I'd say I'm trying to think. I didn't even keep track of money. So new ranked mode, $10. Tournament manager update, that's just 13. I got 12 more dollars here. So I'm thinking, you know what? I like Explo and Nova, so buff both of those. Yeah, sure. That'll be actually no, don't buff Explo, that's gonna be annoying. Buff the Nova and $11. So I'll say I don't even know what map I want reworked, but I'll do a map. Actually, no, I'll do Splatfest and PBs. I'll do it for the people. And then
How much
I don't
you
even know
got?
what I don't know. Let me see. Splatfest PBs, new ranked mode.
You got to
That's
budget
20.
this now.
I have $1 left. So buff Wavebreaker. I have a heavy on my team. That's my budget there.
There
Buff
you
Nova,
go.
buff Wavebreaker, ranked turf war, Splatfest and PBs, and tournament manager update. That's my $25 budget.
I'm gonna splurge a little bit here. S-Blast needs something. And I don't know like how I think it's gonna get a nerf, but I don't think it's gonna knock it out because I can't remember the last time a nerf like completely killed something. There's always gonna be overreactions. There's always people that are like, oh, this is gonna completely change everything. But that's why I wanted to like walk it back like the previous patch. Because when that first came out, there's probably a lot of talk about how everything's going to change. And now that we've lived through it for 5 months, it's like, okay. But S-Blast has to go down. That's $15. I would offer a suggestion to how to nerf Cooler. Make the Cooler dispenser destroyable. Like, make it an object you can actually get rid of. Wavebreaker can be destroyed, but Cooler cannot. Explain that to me. And maybe that should be the switch. You can't break a wave breaker, but you can break a Cooler. But I'm going to use $15 on S-Blast. I'm going to use $5 to nerf the bucket. And I'll use the other $5 to retweet the splatter color screen, I guess. Is that the repost it? It needs a rework. I think screen has a lot of potential. It's just how it is right now. It's not worth practicing it because I don't know what percentage of teams have it banned, but it makes no sense to practice it if you're not going to get to use it consistently enough in tournaments, and rightfully so. But yeah, it needs it does need, regardless, it needs to be fixed just because it still hurts people physically. It should be something about that.
Here's an interesting rework. This would make Splatter's color screen a completely different special than it is now. But imagine if it was stationary and solid. So you throw down a splatter color screen and the other team has to break it. Like you have to shoot at it to break it. And it kind of it like chips away. So you could like carve out like a little circle to run through. It's not like an object where you shoot it and then just the whole thing breaks. But you have to like almost like you're like digging a hole in like Minecraft or something. You have to like break a way through so you could create a solid barrier so that the other team has to take time to break it, and you can give your team to reposition, to hide, to move away, like something like that. Would that be interesting? That just kind of popped up in my head.
For $5? I mean, look, when you start thinking about reworking things, you start to realize like, okay, well, this is, like these are certain scenarios where you throw up a screen and they have to shoot it on this specific map and it becomes broken. Like there are some screen, I can't recall, but there was like some stages where if you threw down screen and you had enough special power up on it, you couldn't dodge it. It was impossible. Like it covered literally the entire movable area. I think it's Hagglefish, actually. I think if you throw it down the zone on Hagglefish, it covers the entire zone. So like you just have to avoid that area. There's nothing you can do about it. But when you start adding like changes to it, then you're like, okay, well now it becomes broken on this specific scenario. and that's why we're not the game devs. But we can angrily say this needs to be fixed. Without solution.
We can take a moral high ground and say that we're smarter and say that Nintendo is stupid, but not have any of the experience. It's great.
I mean, I'd love to see just considering splatter color screen just got that like that little swirl. I'd love to just see it just invert the colors to like the other like so like if it's like the classic green and pink and you're green, you go through it just inverts it so that like you see pink and you just confuse yourself like wait. I'm not supposed to be trying to go in that. What am I doing? Like, just really confuse you. Just the whole premise, just confuse the player. Don't remove the stupid sound thing. It's annoying. Remove your screen got darker. Just invert the colors. That's the simplest fix possible for splatter color screen and make it so usable. And that when people are just like the already like 2 minutes into the game, they know they're in color. Once they get inversed, they'll be trying to go at the enemy in color because they'll think it's theirs. I mean, I think that's the best way to make it not only just better, but just fun. Like, that's the whole point of this game. It's supposed to be fun. Like, just give it like the cotton candy effect, man. I guess my budgeting to toss in there. Definitely splatter color screen. I was literally while y'all were talking about that, I was just thinking like how would I work, and that's literally what my fix was. So definitely $5 on that. Nerf my other $5 I'll use to nerf the mini. That thing gets special too fast, too many times. I'm annoyed by it. I don't need to see bubble every 5 seconds or Zuka every 3. So that's $10 there. I'd love to see the Splatfest finally in PBs. That was such a fun activity, especially when I first got into the Splatoon scene. Fun PB nights where we just went on the Splatfest stages and stuff. Like that was a good time. I enjoyed that. So I'll throw $10 there. Optimize the tournament manager. Make it better, just not only for Salmon Run, but like just for everyone. Like just make it worth our while. Like Hammy said, like it has so many good opportunities. It's just not user friendly unless you're extremely dedicated to the craft and have too much time on your hands. And then I guess the last two I'm gonna throw. We'll buff Nova and Wavebreaker. Let's make Nova somehow more annoying for the fun of it. I think that could be a good. I remember when they first buffed it where it was like, oh yeah, it'll shoot steadier. People were like, this is like one step closer to becoming Splatter Shot, but it's 4 shots. And I was like, yeah. Let's keep doing it though. Don't stop, please. And then Wavebreaker. I mean, you use like a quarter of your ink tank depending on the weapon to destroy it, and then you still have enough for your sub weapon and a couple extra shots. Like. Buff that thing, maybe make it a little bit sturdier, or it maybe increase the range of it when you have maybe the special power up. I think that could be fun. But that's how I spend my 25.
Yeah. Let me just say, honestly, any of this, I'd be fine with. Just give me one.
Yeah,
I think it'd be cool.
Yes,
what we're going to get is a buff to hammer again. The recycle Brella movement speed's going to get adjusted somehow, and Zuka's going to do more damage to Ink Rail. Like, that's the kind of things we get. Like, how could you even think of that? And that's the thing you're going to do? Okay, sure. Yeah, that's what we're going to get.
We're going to get a major update, and it's like, your movement speed in Ink Rail has been reduced by 2%.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, I don't even know what 2% does. Like, I got a frame count to see how different that is. Okay.
But then we do see like a 40-minute long analysis video on why this is the most important change.
Or they'll give Splash Wall the Brella effect where like, we fixed an issue where on one game you would be in front of it and the other person's game you were behind it. We made it so it's more consistent. And it's just not. And it just won't be. It's just filler text that they got bored to fill in.
See, I've given up because like do you guys know like the Booyah Bomb glitch with like Stamper and other weapons where you can just kill them because it does object damage to the player? Like, do you guys know that at all?
The hammer does object damage to the player?
Well, no. So
because the Booyah Bomb armor is an object technically.
Yeah, so what happens is there's a glitch where like a Stamper, this Splatana Stamper at max range, like at its lowest damage, is 182 damage to somebody in a Booyah Bomb. And as someone who uses a weapon with Booyah Bomb, I'm very sick and tired of it. But it's been a bug for over 3 years, and Nintendo has never fixed it. And so, like, I've just given up all hope on every update. Like, it's whatever. Like, they can put whatever in the game. Who cares anymore? They're not even fixing some stuff that's been there for a while. So, I've lost all hope.
My favorite thing is when they do put out a patch that says, yeah, we're addressing this specific glitch. And the first thing somebody does is go into a private battle and the new patch and proves that it still works. Like when they fixed Rainmaker on Art Academy in Splatoon 2, like you could take the Rainmaker up that wall that was uninkable. And they made a patch like, yeah, we fixed it. And then immediately, I think it was the team on Crack, they just like went into a PB like, yeah, we just found a new way to get up there anyways. And it's like, oh, okay. Great.
I think we should bring back the glitch where you can use the big swig to overheat people's switches. You guys remember
that was the thing?
Yes. What map was it? What map was that?
It was on Eeltail.
It was Eeltail, yes.
Under the bridge. Fling upwards.
Yes. Dude,
that would overheat
the game.
That would overheat the user's switch or like everyone in the lobby.
It lagged out the game. I think it would like crash the lobby, and I think I heard people's switches overheating from it. But it was like it would crash out the lobby. Like the game would shut down. Everyone would DC.
Well, the problem too was if you had a newer Switch that had a better like just battery and memory board because they update those every so often, you were stuck in that game frozen by the time just going slower and slower. So you had no choice but to close out your game to get out of it. I'll never forget there was a clip on on Twitter or something of someone saying, "I've been trapped in this game for 8 minutes. I can't get out." And people are like, "Just turn off your Switch. Just lose the points. It's not worth it."
So I think we're at the point you're like 11.0. We've passed 10. They should start regressing the game. Start adding glitches. Start making it just ruin the experience for everybody.
Back to day one.
That's my Splatoon. That's my Nintendo for 2026.
Hey, that's how you can find the best portion of the game's timeline. Just go backwards until people just stop complaining a lot, and then that's where you start Splatoon 4. That's the money point.
So I think we're kind of at a good stopping point here. We've already gone over the maximum time that CKK expected us to yap for, which I mean he underestimated all of us. So I've got places to be. So anyone have any closing thoughts about the 11.0 or 11.0 patch, or we? No? Okay, cool.
So in the words of K-Bot, just hype responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Just don't. You can have copium, but not unironically.
Yeah, reasonable copium.
Anyway, so I guess before we close out here, we'll go back down the line. Once again, y'all can shout out your own stuff. Obviously, all of us have podcasts, so we can just kind of shout our own things out. So I guess I'll start. Once again, I'm Hammy. You can find me in every platform at Hammy in the Wall, most actively in Blue Sky at HITW. I have a podcast, Critical Linking, that I never make episodes for, but apparently I qualify. But the previous episodes are on YouTube. I hope that some of the stuff I talk about is relatively insightful or sparks cool discussion. And I guess, yeah. Whichever you guys want to go next.
You can find me doing IPL stuff, which, by the way, if you noticed, I was on something not IPL the past couple of months, and I had to have a sock over this, a black sock over this. But I'm glad that yes, and I'm glad to be able to show my IPL pride yet again. I'm glad Beep doesn't discourage that kind of stuff. I haven't done a podcast in like a couple of weeks because our kid's been potty training, and oh my god, that requires a lot of work. Oh my god. We're still hacking away at that, but I'm sure I'll do an episode Monday. I have no idea what I'll talk about, but we'll talk about something. Maybe we'll do a hyperdive discussion. It seems fun.
Ooh, I like that. I guess I'm next. You can find me not streaming every day. I don't do that anymore. That was a 2025 thing. It's now in the past. I've been enjoying not doing that and just having time to do other stuff. It's crazy. Of course, find me on the Cactus Patch whenever I think I can put an episode together. I'll have one hopefully eventually. All my socials at Glitch Cactus, Twitch at Glitch Cactus One. Whenever I do decide to stream now, I have some content in the background I've been trying to put together. It's taken a little longer than I expected. As I said, just some life stuff, pushing its way forward as life does. But eventually we'll be making content again. Eventually.
Rad. Well, thanks, gentlemen, for joining me today and chat. I feel like it is weird. Like we're a group of 3 people. I feel like the 3 of us have never been in a room at the same time. I feel like
we're at Riptide. What?
Yeah, okay, not in a conversation. Everyone's been in the same room at the Riptide because we're all in the venue. But it's never been like a. I've talked to Popkin a lot, talked to Cactus a lot, but I've never talked. Like, it's never been like a. Beep has a lot of weird. Yeah, Beep brings together pairings that I feel like never happen. It's like old cartoon crossover episodes, when they did like the Jimmy and Timmy Power Hour or Totally Spies and Martin Mystery. But anyway, let's get out of here. CKK, I don't know how to end an episode of Beep, so you should just like cut us off or something. Thanks everyone for watching.